To self-government, St. Anthony's School for Young Ladies will be run by young ladies from this point forward. Hi, I'm Ray, and today I will be reviewing The Scandalous Sisterhood of Prickwillow Place by Julie Berry. After the unfortunate death of the headmistress and her brother, the 7 girls of St. Anthony's School for Young Ladies make the rash decision to run the schools themselves, instead of returning home to their families. Not only are they now faced on the lookout for the murderer, they must also hide the fact that anyone ever died that Sunday evening. However, the school is faced with more guests than ever and too many questions that could reveal the girl's secret. I loved this murder mystery. It was such a fun little funny read. It reminded me a lot of the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I gave it a 3.5 to like a 4-star rating just because murder mysteries aren't always my favorite, but it was a fun, quick little read that I got really into. It made me smile and it made me laugh. The characters are focused on 7 girls ranging from like, I want to say 12 to like 17ish, and they all have little nicknames, and the book switches point of views almost between the 7 of them. Not exactly, it's more of a third person omniscient point of view telling, so it's just like random paragraphs to switch, but it's not confusing, and the way it's done is really well, and I always know like who they're talking about, and I never like got lost like, wait, who's that? No, it's really well written, really good. So the 7 girls are disgraceful Mary Jane Marshall, who she's the disgraceful one as she is the flirt of the group, and she's also the eldest, and anytime she sees man, she is just like, you know, I could elope. And she's also like a mother hen to all the younger girls, and she will protect them, but she will also kind of be mean. But that's just who she is, and she was my favorite character throughout the book. She always made me smile and laugh, and I loved her little like part in the whole group. The next character is Smooth Kitty Heaton. She is the leader and the planner of the group. She is the one who's quick on her feet and who makes the plans. She helps keep the finances after the death of her headmistress, and they make sure everything is going to plan, and she comes up with the idea of not returning home and not running the school by themselves in the first place. She is like the mother of everyone, and she just keeps everyone safe and protected, and she doesn't stand for any nonsense. Next is Stout Alice Brooks. She is the actress of the group, and therefore they put her in the position of playing their dead headmistress and dressing her up as their dead headmistress so no one suspects anything. And unfortunately it's because Stout Alice does kind of resemble the posture and the frame of their 62-year-old headmistress, which is something Alice is insecure about, but we get to explore throughout the book. Next we have dear Roberta Pratley. She is the religious, and she faints a lot, and everyone's just like, oh no, don't faint here. And it's funny and cheerful because she is the morality of the group, and she cries easily, and she's just like, you can't say that, they're dead, like we have to be kind to them. And she's just like the religious one of the group. Then we also have dull Martha Boyle, who, as in her name, she is not the wisest sharpest crown in the box. She is the stupid one, and it's basically who she is that she doesn't understand things, so things have to be explained to her differently or explained to her. And then we also have Poct Louise Dudley. She is the youngest, and she's also the scientist. She wants to explore. She doesn't want to go marry some man. She wants to be in the laboratory, which is also mentioned by her uncle. And our last one is Dour Eleanor Sevier, and she, as in her name, is very dour. She doesn't, some people are murdered, and she's just not affected by it. She thinks that's cool, that's interesting, and it doesn't affect her, which bugs dear about her Pratley. But these 7 girls, throughout the book, you just kind of fall in love with them, and you grow attached to them, and you want to you almost feel like you're part of the little sisterhood they have. Another thing I really like about this book is that in it, they put your cast of characters in the main cover. So you have all 7 of them, and they have little portraits with all their nicknames. And they also give you names that pop out through the book, but you don't actually meet the characters themselves, and they just give them to you. And I really enjoyed this factor, and there's another page of it. And I just really like this, and I wish more books did it, because I find it really interesting when books give like little extra bit of world building and everything. But I definitely do, if you're really into the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, I would recommend this to you. Or if you just like a good fun murder mystery novel, or you're trying to get into them, it's nice, it's short, and it's really funny, and I really enjoyed it. Now I'm going to go through the plot of the book basically and give my little rant of everything I enjoyed and things I didn't enjoy. and there will be major spoilers. So if you would like to read this book and you don't want to know who murdered who and everything, do not continue. There will be spoilers. I will be spoiling the rest of the book from this point forward. Alright, so it starts off at Sunday dinner with her headmistress, Miss Plastic, and her brother, Mr. Godding, who come over and they have dinner, and they are both poisoned and they drop dead. The girls, after deciding to we're not going to leave each other because we're a sisterhood and no one wants to go home with the family, they decided to we're just going to run this place by ourselves and it's going to go great. We don't have many visitors, like nothing's going to happen. This plan quickly derails very quickly, as apparently it was Mr. Godding's birthday that day, and Miss Plackett decided to throw a surprise party for him. So as they have the 2 dead bodies of Mr. Godding and Mrs. Plackett on the table, they have knocked on the door and they're immediately panicked. They shove Miss Plackett into her bed to claim that she is unwell, and they take Mr. Godding and put him in the armoire with one of the other girls, Dower Eleanor, just to shove her because he won't stay. And so the guests are arriving and they have to quickly make up excuses of like, where's Mr. Godding and where is Mrs. Plackett, right? She organizes things, she's not even here. And all the girls are very anxious, and Smooth Kitty, she comes into play and she's just like, don't worry, Miss Plackett is feeling unwell at the moment, so she is resting in her room. Please come in. Mr. Godding has yet to arrive. And then this plan quickly derails as the local doctor comes in, and it's not for the surprise party, but it is indeed for the fact that Miss Plackett has been having liver problems, and he has come to check on her. And even after the instance of Smooth Kitty of being like, you don't need to, she's resting, let her be, he is insisting, no, it is my job. She insisted I come tonight, so I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna check on her. And he goes to the room, and luckily it's dark, so he can't quite see that she is indeed not alive anymore. But he pulls out the stethoscope, and Smooth Kitty is trying to talk him out, like trying to keep him distracted, trying to do all this, and it doesn't work. And he pulls the stethoscope on, but luckily, little Poke Louise, who has interest in science, comes up behind him, and she starts asking questions. And when he does finally try to listen to her heart, she starts breathing heavily in his ear to distract him from the noise itself. Meanwhile, Dear Roberta Pratley, Dull Martha Boyle, and Disgraceful Mary Jane are still welcoming more guests in, and the frail old choir teacher, Mrs. Frickle, comes in, and they're trying to, at this point, trying to get them out because they can't have a bunch of people in the house when they're still trying to deal with the 2 dead bodies. And in an attempt to keep them out, poor Dull Martha Boyle pushes Mrs. Frickle over and sprains her ankle. While this doesn't cause problems for them in the long run, it helps get rid of the doctor as he rushes away from the dead Miss Plackett to go help wrap up Miss Frickle. Everyone still asking where Mr. Godding is. Smooth Kitty remembers that she had Miss Plackett and him had a nephew in India named Julius, and she's like, he fell in deathly ill, and so Mr. Godding rushed off to go and save him, and he didn't, but that's their excuse. And everyone's like, oh, that doesn't seem like a him thing to do. And she's like, well, he did. And they leave, except poor Miss Frickle, who decides that I can't move because of my ankle. And even after the constable asks, like, oh, I could do that, I could take you home. And she's like, no, I'm fine. I'll stay here with Miss Plackett. We've done it before. Right, well, this creates issue as Miss Plackett is dead, and it will be very noticeable at this point. So they heat up the fire, and they prepare tea. And in the tea, they put in a sleeping draught that the doctor gave them to give to Miss Plackett for her liver. And they give that to her, and once she has been soundly knocked out inside the bed, they take her glasses away, and they go back into the living room, and they remove Mr. Godding from the armoire, and they keep him, and they get him to stay so that where poor Dower Eleanor can come out of the armoire. And then they have to plan, and they remember that Alice is she looks like her, and it'll be dark, and it'll be fine. So at midnight, after Miss Frickle's sound asleep, they pull out Miss Plackett, and they put Miss Plackett in Alice's bed, and they put Alice in the bed with her dressed in the headmistress's night clothes, and pray for the best. That's the first main issue. And then next morning, they actually have to get rid of the bodies. Miss Frickle is still in the house as they do this, but she's asleep, and they took her glasses away, so she won't be able to see anything until they give them back. And so they do this at 4 a.m. in the morning. Kitty wakes up everyone, and she just takes them out, and she's like, okay, this is what we're doing, this is the plan, we got this. Quickly derails as because Mr. Godding has been standing in the armoire all night, he is now in a weird position and he will no longer lay properly in the grave they have dug. And then Henry Butts, one of the young man who brings them milk every morning, comes in, and they have to quickly distract him. And they claim they are planting a cherry tree, which they have to now buy a cherry tree. And he's like, but it's not cherry tree season. And they're like, but that's what we're doing because we decided. And he's like, I'll bring you compost. And they're like, great. And so now they are in a rush for time because he's coming back. They have they have Martha out to like watch everything to make sure, like, let them know, like, deter anyone from coming over. And they're quickly trying to just cover up the bodies. And when they finally go and they try to receive Alice from the bed and like wake up Miss Friggle, so the way Alice is not back to her, Miss Alice has been in a conversation with Miss Friggle for an hour playing the headmistress, and Miss Friggle doesn't know a thing. So this is when their plan realizes that Alice was just now going to become a 62-year-old woman, which she is very upset and distraught about. And they decide that they'll quickly try a way to get rid of her. Somehow, they send Miss Friggle on her way with Henry Butts, because he came back with the compost for them for their tree. And they also send Louise with him and Miss Friggle, because she needs to go to the chemist shop, not only for supplies, because she wants to figure out what they were poisoned with, but also for a cherry tree seed, which they now need to plant. And so they keep telling lies, and they keep digging themselves deeper into this hole. They also have to deal with the housekeeper they have, Amanda Barnes, who says she comes over every day and she cleans for them, which is great, and they appreciate her help, but that will not do with Miss Plackett no longer being there. And so Smooth Kitty has to fire her. It does not work the first time. She's like, I've worked here for 24 years. I deserve the right for Miss Plackett herself to fire me. And she's like, oh, she's unwell. She's like, she will have time to fire me if she's like really wants to fire me. So poor Alice has to do to her, which she was very upset and distraught about, and felt awful, and they all feel awful for it. And then that night they decide to go through everything, and they search the house, and Smooth Kitty's going through the ledger books for the Miss Plackett, and quickly realizing that there is money missing, but they should be receiving enough money so they're not in debt, but there's a lot of debt going on. She's confused because Miss Plackett, her husband, died, and therefore she has been left a fortune, as everyone claims, but there is no fortune to be found, and they are quickly going poorer, and they don't know what to do with themselves. Right? And so they plan, and Smooth Kitty's talking about this, and Louise is like, we don't really care. We should be more worried about the fact there is a murder out, and the murderer probably realizes by now that Miss Plackett is not dead, and will probably want to do it again. And so they separate. Louise is now the leader of the murder investigation team, which makes her over the moon, and Smooth Kitty is just doing the ledger books and keeping everything track, and she texts everything away. They also have, in the morning, a will was delivered for her, and it leaves everything to Julius, her nephew, no one else. And she also has been receiving letters and a very gemstone engraved elephant from the older admiral, who they're quickly realizing they have been courting one another, and poor Alice is not looking forward to, because there is a strawberry social Wednesday evening that they've all agreed to go to, and she will have to be Miss Plackett, of course, and she will have to be with the 82-year-old admiral, of course. The Tuesday, they decide to go to town and they shop around. By this point, everyone knows that they have fired Miss Barnes, and everyone does not like them at this point because Miss Barnes was caring for her sickly mother, and everyone feels bad, and like, why would you do that to her? Smooth Kitty, as they're in the chemist shop to pick up more paint for Alice's face to continue to make her look like Miss Plackett, runs into a strange gentleman who gives her a caramel, and is younger. She has no clue who he is, and he leaves. And they get back to the house, and the constable is waiting there, and disgraceful Mary Jane is over the moon as she fancies the constable, and she's trying to flirt with him, and Smoothie Kitty's just like, stop it, he was here for a reason. He's asking questions about Mr. Goading, because apparently he has been in debt with the innkeeper he has been staying with, and his debts aren't satisfied. She hasn't seen him in a while, and they're like, oh, he left right away for India and everything, and that's why he's not back. And it's like, oh, she didn't stop. Like, no, but you can bring all the clothes and everything here, like, we understand. So the clothes are brought over to their house and to the school. Wednesday morning, they're all just more rushing around to get everything together. It's also to be mentioned that while Louise is out buying the charity street, she also bought a dog. She brought a little puppy home with everyone, and they called him Adolphus to match Mr. Groding's first name. Smooth Kitty Pete doesn't really like the dog chews on everything, but she gets over it because she loves the dog. Like, Louise loves the dog. It's her little buddy. So now it's the strawberry social, and they go, and they're as a group. Poor Alice is sick at home, but she's really playing Miss Packet. And quickly, this is where the plan really starts to derail, as Miss Packet is supposed to sing. Alice can't sing very well, but she has to sing anyway because Miss Packet would never miss a chance to perform. And everyone goes off. Disgraceful Mary Jane goes off with the constable. Two boys from theology school come up and they take away dear Roberta Protley and dour Eleanor. Pock Louise is sitting there upset at everyone. Dull Martha Boyle is off with Henry Butt. Stout Alice Brooks is with Ledger Keeper. And Smooth Keaton is once again with her mysterious stranger, leaving poor stout Alice alone with the Admiral, and Pock Louise alone because she is 12 years old. And so this is when things go quickly, because Kitty's still watching everything, and she's talking about art with this man. As he's leaving, because Miss Plackett starts to sing, he asks for her name. She tells it to him, of course, and he tells her hers, and it's none other than Julius Goding, the nephew who's supposed to be sick in India. She is panicking, but she can't interrupt because she can't tell anyone all they're here. And then the Admiral drops dead, a poisoning. Everyone's in chaos. Amanda Barnes is supposed to be, also has dropped dead in the kitchen. She's not dead though. She has just fainted out of shock that the Admiral has now died. Right, so Alice is thankfully able to stop singing as everyone's distracted by this. And the 7 girls are quickly rushed home by Henry Butts, who takes them all home again. And they're trying to talk and figure out what happened, how did this happen? And it turned out the Admiral drank from Alice's cup, so therefore the murderer was Indian trying to kill Miss Packet again, which awfully failed. And now Alice is and we can't continue to do this, everything's going to plan. And while they're at the strawberry social, the constable asked once again about Mr. Godin. He's like, how did you get to London to get to India? Did you take the train? Because if you took the train, I have an informant at the train station who said he never saw him. Great memory. And so their plan is quickly downrailing Mr. Godin. Julius is back with his mother. There's no reason Mr. Godin is never saying left town. And they're quickly realizing that this is all failing miserably. Well, when they return home to everything, their house has been robbed of every china, silver, all the things. Cabinets have been ransacked. The mysterious golden elephant is gone. All of her money, ledgers, and wills is gone. The money has been stolen, and the dog Adolphus has been poisoned seemingly. So they dour Eleanor, disgrace Mary Jane. They rush out to go and get Henry Butt so he can receive the constable and the doctor to try to help them. Once they get there, the doctor gives the dog some sniffing salts, and the dog wakes back up. Thankfully. The dog is not dead, but they've indeed been robbed, and trying to figure out the all together of what happened here, who is stealing them, who killed the Admiral. And then Amanda Barnes, the ex-housemaid, comes and she knocks on the door, and she's like, I have information. Miss Placket here killed Mr. Goding. I know this because I saw them bury him out in the garden, right? And that's a very serious accusation. And Julius and his mother is also there, and her mother looks over at them, and she's like, if Miss Placket did indeed kill Mr. Goding, it's not this Miss Placket, because that's not Miss Placket, right? And everyone's like, what do you mean? And she's like, how have you not noticed? I haven't seen this woman in 11 years, and I've noticed right away that this was not a 62-year-old woman. Shame on y'all. And so now they're in trouble, and poor dull Martha just loses it, and after everyone, the Admiral, 2 of the other constables leave with Julius to go search the garden for the supposed dead body of Mr. Goding, and this breaks poor dull Martha as she just tells everyone everything since Sunday about how Miss Placket and Mr. Goding dropped dead, and instead of wanting to go home, they decided just to bury them out in the garden, and just everything, and they're all just sitting there waiting. And now the main constable is still there, Constable Quill. It's still there, and Louise is like, well, I think I figured out who did it, right? Because they originally suspected it to be Amanda Barnes who broke into the house, but why would Amanda Barnes kill Miss Plackett, who hires her, and Mr. Godding? Like, why, right? So they believe her for to be the suspect of the thief, but they find out it is indeed the doctor who is the thief of the burglary, because Mr. Godding had a gambling problem and owes the doctor a crap ton of money. And how do we figure this out? Well, he has the golden elephant in his purse, and Dower Eleanor sees it, points it out, takes it from him, and is like, we have our thief, but he's not our murderer because he just wanted the money from Mr. Godding, and you can't murder someone and get their money without being in the will, and that's not in the will. So they figured out the thief, but they still did the murder, and they quickly find out that it was Amanda Barnes who did it, because of the fact that she was in love with Mr. Godding, and so therefore he wanted to marry her, and he agreed to marry her, but he had to wait for Mrs. Plackett's blessing, and he was trying to get out of his debt before he married her, so he was asking for money from her, and Miss Plackett was saying no, so she's like, I'm just gonna hit 2+1, and we're just gonna kill off Miss Plackett. And the way it quickly derails is because she only poisoned one of the veals that was delivered to their house on Saturday evening, but the way the old Martha, who cooked the veal that evening, did it was she put both of them in a thing of water and she boiled them for a bit before she cooked them in the pans, which spread the poison to both of the veal slices, which ended up killing them both. Right? And Amanda Barnes is like, how dare you say this about me? But it's ultimately true. She is the murderer, and so the constable takes both the doctor and her away in handcuffs, as they've both been thieves and the murderer. But he comes and before he leaves, he looks at them both and he goes, I'll be back in the morning because what you girls have done is very serious offense of the fact that you impersonated someone, you buried 2 dead bodies without any licensing, whatever you've done, you've done transactions impersonating someone, you have very serious crimes against you. So I'll be back in the morning. We have to take care of this first. And so Julius leaves with them. His mother stays to take care of them. And in the morning, Smooth Kitty, she wakes up bright and early because she wakes up at 3 a.m. and she just cannot sleep because what is going to happen to him, and it's all her fault because she was the one who came up with the idea in the first place. And so she goes downstairs, and there is Mrs. Godding, Julius's mother, waiting in a little cabinet, and so on the porch, and they have a little, and she asked, like, what's going on in that mine? And Smooth Kitty's confused, and she goes, well, I'm just confused on how you thought of doing all this. It was either like militant. So Smooth Kitty explains how none of them wanted to return to their families, and how most of them, they've formed like a sisterhood and they don't want to be separated from one another, so she was just trying to think of a way to keep them all close together. And she said that makes a lot of sense, and she leaves. Now they make breakfast, and then there's a package delivered to them, and so they quickly, and Miss Godding is just like, we can leave it, we'll have our breakfast first, and then we'll come back to it. But the girls insist on opening it now, and it's a giant wooden elephant. And how do you open the giant elephant? With the golden elephant she received from the Admiral earlier. And it is the supposed fortune of Miss Plackett. It's all of her fortune inside this elephant, which explains all the missing money and everything. It's because it's all sitting in this elephant, which they now have. Well, they go back to their breakfast, and then the constable, of course, comes, and this is the same constable that was disgraceful Mary Jane has been flirting with, of course. And so he's talking to them, and he's like, listen, I have to take them away. And Miss Godding, and she's like, no, they did it out of, like, they didn't want to go home. They born a sisterhood. Like, they were children. It was just a mix-up. It wasn't, like, at malintent or whatever. He's like, you don't understand. Like, I have to do this. Now, this is where disgraceful Mary Jane's disgracefulness comes into play, and I love this part of the book because Miss Godding looks at him, you would think you would be better at this because it affects your marriage. And he goes, my marriage? He goes, well, of course, it's, with how long you kissed Mary Jane's cheek here last night, you would think that you'd be married soon because that's the way the court works in 1890 London. And he's like immediately, right? He panics, and she laughs it off. He's like, and he agrees that it was a mistake. Miss Godding agrees to take care of the children, right? And everyone lives like their little happily ever after. And it was such a good book. I definitely recommend. And it was so good. I enjoyed all the characters, and they all have like different little parts to play. And definitely recommend for anyone who's interested in reading a fun little murder mystery novel. So those were my thoughts on the Scandalous Sisterhood of Prickwillow Place. Thank you for watching.